Hello, my name is Azfikrul Dexter, metric number VA19002. The topic that I will present today is initiating the turnaround. Initiation is the first process in a turnaround life cycle. The initiation process has several inputs such as important tasks, strategic plan, contractor selection criteria, and historical information. Initiation rises in the publication of a shutdown charter. During the initiation period, turnaround parameters are defined, core personnel appointed, and basic data organized. A steering committee is formed and responsible for review, selection, and prioritization. The steering group takes responsibility for the long-term strategy for turnarounds. Moving to the next slide. One of the first steps a shutdown manager will take in the initiation process is to develop a shutdown overview. The four inputs described in the previous section will help to outline the shutdown overview and will be used again when formulating the final charter. At the completion of the initiation process, the organization commits to fund the shutdown and provide the necessary resources to carry it out. During shutdown, there will be draining of resources, there will be potential safety hazards, and there will be unforeseen problems. Senior management should ensure that the turnaround is aligned with maintenance objectives, production requirements, and business goals. A long-term plan for shutdown management should be outlined in the budget forecast 3 to 10 years before execution. The long-term plan contains a fairly detailed list of the major work that must be performed during each scheduled major shutdown. Conducting a kick-off meeting. The meeting involves the major players that are responsible for planning, including the shutdown manager, manager for certain areas of knowledge, subject matter expert, and functional leads. Discussions that includes are initial discussion of the scope of shutdown, the definition of success on the shutdown, the assumption and constraints as identified in the shutdown charter, the organizational chart, and lastly the participants' roles and responsibilities. Plan turnaround history. Past events should also be analyzed to ascertain the ratio of emergent work to planned work and the extent to which emergent work increased the planned expenditure. The norm is between 5% and 10%. Current performance dictated by the current operating performance of the plant and the level and effectiveness of preventive maintenance carried out in the period between turnarounds. The shutdown charter defines the vision, objectives, scope, and deliverable for the shutdown. It also provides the organization structure and a summarized plan of the activities, resources, and funding required to undertake the shutdown. Any risk issues, planning assumptions, and constraints are listed. Establish the shutdown vision and objective. The shutdown must reflect the business goals of the organization. Objectives should be measurable as well as applicable to each phase of the shutdown and reflect the outcome established by the vision. Shutdown requirement. The shutdown work necessary and vital to the safety, quality, or production efficiency of the plant. Desirable at this time in the life of the plant. It is too late or too soon. For the scope statement, at this time, you require a scope statement for the shutdown. The purpose of the scope statement is to document the shutdown goals, deliverable, and requirements so that they can be used as a baseline for future decisions. Assumption lists any unsubstantiated ideas about the project. Constraints: money, time, people, equipment, supplies, and facilities are often limited in quantity and quality. Appoint shutdown team. The shutdown manager documents a detailed job description for each role and appoints a human resource personnel to each role based on his or her relevant skills and experience. Major turnaround milestone. Monitoring this milestone will give complete control of the turnaround activities. The turnaround outlook report should contain details about the jobs accomplished in the turnaround and all the previous outstanding jobs pertaining to the plan. This helps in documenting the pending jobs when the quantum is at its minimum. Release within 6 months of the completion of the turnaround. Preliminary turnaround job list. The preliminary job list is formed based on the turnaround outlook report. The preliminary job list, once prepared, should be released at least 24 months ahead of the forthcoming turnaround for inspection, operation, and field maintenance department reviews. Turnaround review meeting. The first turnaround review meeting by the steering committee, chaired by the head refinery, should be held 24 months ahead of turnaround. The agenda of the meeting should comprise the following points: finalization of tentative date and duration of the next turnaround, firming up of major replacement and modification jobs, identifying the major thrust area and turnaround such as revamp jobs, reliability issues, maintenance or project driven, major turnaround philosophy like unit-wise, staggered or site-wide, approval of turnaround milestone chart, review of the turnaround report and learning from the previous turnaround, on-stream inspection. The on-stream inspection of all units, their utilities and their off-site facilities due for the turnaround should be completed. The inspection report should be released 15 months ahead of turnaround. Improvement or modification jobs. Major modification or improvement jobs should be finalized along with engineering drawings at least 24 months in advance. Smaller modification jobs may be firmed up along with the engineering drawing 15 months ahead of turnaround. The second turnaround review meeting by the steering committee should be held 12 months ahead of turnaround. The agenda of the meeting should comprise the following points: review of the progress against action items of the last meeting and overall progress of turnaround planning, review of major jobs and readiness for the same, review of vendor philosophy and major conditions of contract like liquidate, damage, and bonus clause, review of turnaround philosophy, review and approval of the turnaround schedule and cost, release of final frozen turnaround job list, finalize the exact date and duration of turnaround, finalize the action plan for material procurement and contracting. The third turnaround review meeting by the steering committee should be held 6 months ahead of turnaround. The agenda of meeting should comprise the following points: review of the progress against action items of the last meeting and overall progress of turnaround planning, resolving any issues pertaining to turnaround, review of the timing of proposed turnaround, situation of turnaround of other companies in and around the country or region, its acceptability from the angle of religious function, weather conditions, review of major jobs and readiness for the same, approval of allotment of the fabrication spaces to vendor, administrative issues related to turnaround, gate pass police verification, canteen facilities, employee provident fund, employee state insurance scheme procedure, freezing the turnaround start date, review and approval of the change requested to the turnaround job list, requirement of supervisor and engineers from other departments, review and approval of the organization of execution team, review of operation plan, review, shutdown and startup plan, permit philosophy. Handover of job list to execution teams. A formal presentation should be made by respective planners to all the members of the execution teams covering the following aspects: responsibility chart of execution team members, job list, turnaround schedule including pre-fabrication, work schedule and unit shutdown and startup plan, contracts, details of permit philosophy, facilities, administrative requirement, housekeeping, scrap disposal plan. Expectation from execution teams, monitoring formats. Pre-fabrication review meeting. This meeting shall be chaired by GMO and the main objective of these meetings shall be to take stock of the prefabrication work, performance of vendor, and to resolve any issues related with prefabrication. First meeting. The main objective of this meeting will be to ensure presentation on progress by respective planner, proper mobilization by all vendors, review of material availability, resolution of issues related to turnaround, review of shutdown and startup plan. Second meeting. The main objective of this meeting will be to ensure the following presentation on progress by respective planner, review of prefabrication work progress, initiation of pre-turnaround site work like scaffolding erection, temporary lines erection. And third meeting, the main objective of this meeting will be to ensure the following: presentation on progress by respective planner, review of fabrication work progress, review of progress of site activities, resolution of issues related to turnaround. Performance criteria. Describe the criteria for customer satisfaction. Often it points to three criteria, that is, cost, schedule, and quality. The project cannot cost more than a set amount, specific milestone or red letter that must be met, and service or product specification must be addressed. This information allows for meaningful planning and ensure that the project will address key concerns. And finally, shutdown or turnaround performance criteria. Shorter shutdown or turnaround duration to increase availability of manufacturing facility. reducing scope by efficient risk-based inspection, efficient shutdown or turnaround preparation through thorough scope identification to correct level of detail, realistic and workable shutdown or turnaround plan, risk analysis procedure executed on critical path activities, efficient shutdown or turnaround budget control mechanism for planned and emergent work scope, leak-free startup, effectively manage safety environment through innovative safety plans. And that's all for my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Assalamualaikum and good day to Dr. Nur Sabrina. My name is Taslim Minjarudi. My ID number is VA19004. Today, I would like to discuss about my topic, which is planning. Shutdown planning is uniquely challenging and is considerably more challenging than routine running maintenance, as the shutdown duration are kept extremely short because of the need to keep the unit down to a minimum period. Not only that, planning is the technique of picturing ahead every step in a long series of separate operations and so indicating that for each step routine arrangement suffice to cause it to happen in the right place at the right time. Shutdown planning. There are three major phases to planning, as it is loosely called planning, scheduling, and control. The prime goal of the shutdown planning process is to produce a detailed, overall time-based plan, not merely a work list. There are several planning helps. First, to eliminate or reduce uncertainty. Second, to improve efficiency of the operation. Third, to obtain a better understanding of the objective. 4. To provide a basis for monitoring and controlling work. 5. To completely define all work required so that it will be readily identifiable to each participant. 6. If the task is well understood prior to being performed, much of the work can be pre-planned. 7. Planning allows the planner to present a clear, well-documented, properly focused understanding of the shutdown work. Last but not least, you will come to know what extra skills are required for the work. Shutdown planning should begin 9 to 18 months before the anticipated shutdown takes place. 7 areas. First, procurement. Second, engineering. Third, maintenance. 4, operation. 5, quality assurance. 6, health, safety, and the environment, HSE, security. And the last one, administration. There are two levels of planning, which is strategic and tactical. Strategic management planning, that means, first one, establish the vision, goals, objectives, and performance expectation for the shutdowns. Second, determine when to schedule the next major planned shutdowns, such as information from marketing, sales, accounting, operation, and maintenance is analyzed and incorporated into the business plans and can provide a long-term strategic plan. Third, long-range strategic planning should attempt to forecast maintenance requirement a minimum of 10 years into the future. 4. A practical plan shutdowns may be used to eliminate the process failing condition in one area of the plant. 5. Process conditions such as internal fouling and catalyzed life may require the plant to be shut down. A risk assessment of acceptable minimum flow rates and product specification will determine when the plant is required to come offline to correct this process bottleneck. 6. Using non-destructive testing (NDT) techniques, inspection of pressure equipment such as electrical and piping system can be carried out and they can be checked for erosion, corrosion, or thermal degradation while the plant is in operation. Shutdown planning committee. Treat the shutdown like any other project using classic project management technique. Applying project management technique for planning, monitoring, executing, and controlling the progress of the shutdown can delineate various scheduling, resource, and cost questions such as: is the amount of work doable within the allotted period? What are the critical path jobs for completing the shutdown on schedule? Have enough resource, personnel, time, money being allocated? How much do I anticipate the shutdown to cost? can I stay within budget? There are three of tactical planning. First one, the tactical planning include detailed job and scope planning, preparing the estimate, preparing the shutdown organization, and detailed planning for quality and safety. Second, it is now time to undertake detailed planning to ensure that the activity performed in the execution phase of the project are properly sequences, resource executed, and controlled. Third, the detailed planning starts with a kick-off meeting. There are 4 kick-off meetings. First one, the major players responsible for planning, including the shutdown manager, section engineer, for curtains area of knowledge, subject matter experts, and functional leads. Second, the major players are usually authorized by their functional area to make decisions concerning timing, cost, and resources requirement. Third, the following subjects: turnaround policy, plant standards, work list, major task review, project review, inspection review, spare review, safety review, quality review, and site logistics. 4. Initial discussion of the scope of the shutdown, including both the technical object and the business object, will involve: first one, statement of work that lists the purpose, scope, and deliverable of the shutdown. Second, the assumption and constraints. Third, the shutdown coordinator and his group. And the last one, the participants' roles and responsibilities. Job of planning team. There are 11 typical roles and responsibility would include but not be limited to: first, gathering basic data for planning from plant and other necessary personnel. Second, producing task specification and network for all small tasks. Third, specifying bulk work tasks and listing them on control sheets. 4. Producing material requirement sheets for specified tasks. 5. Producing equipment and service requirement sheets. 6. Preparing task books for the execution team. 7. Liaising with other necessary personnel. 8. Checking complete planning document and passing them to plant personnel for validation. 9. Checking critical path network produced by the planner and putting them into the schedule. 10. Creating and optimizing the turnaround schedule. Last but not least, the number of planner is dictated by the amount of work to be done and the time and money available. Planning step 1. There are 8 we need to developing the shutdown work list. First, goal as the shutdown planner should be to produce a detailed time-based plan. Development of the shutdown work list should begin immediately after completion of preceding shutdown. Second, during the period between shutdowns, maintenance technicians should add potential work to the work list as they recognize the work. Third, the operation department should initiate a work request for each job and the request should be routed to the shutdown planner for evaluation. 4. The shutdown planner should establish a deadline for submitting work to the work list. 5. Should meet regularly with representatives from other departments, the shutdown planning team involved in the shutdown to review the work list. 6. Keeping the list short is both a means to reduce cost and the primary method for focusing on work that can only be performed during a major outage. 7. Shutdown planning begins with inspection and testing of critical components such as relief bulk, repair, and replacement of damage. 8. Once a complete scope of work has been developed that includes each of the unit operation, the material, manpower, and duration of the work can be determined for each of those units. There are 4 work lists we should to follow. First one is throughout the period between shutdowns, all prospective work should be registered as soon as it is recognized. Second, as each job is identified, it should be written up, a work request generated, and passed to the nominated shutdown planner for evaluation. Third, a cut-off date for submitting work request should be set. And the last one, after this deadline, no further jobs should be admitted to the work list without the approval of higher management. There are 6 for work list meeting. First, turnaround manager. Second, planning team. Third, plant or production manager. 4. Maintenance manager or whoever is responsible for the maintenance function. 5. Plant supervisor. And the last ones, Electric A, Instrumentation Engineer, and Supervisors. Inspection Review Meeting. The purpose of the major task review meeting is to ensure that large, complex, or hazardous tasks are given the due consideration that their importance merit, so that a relevant specification for the task may be produced. Now we move to the project work review meeting. The meeting should ensure that the project work normally planned by the project department is properly integrated into the turnaround schedule, so that all conflicts are resolved and requirement meets. For validated work scope, once the scope has been validated, the work list is frozen on a date agreed by the steering group. Thereafter, any requests for work are authorized by the highest executive authority available, and if it can be justified and is approved, should be placed on a late work list. The money, time, and resource required to carry it out are extra to budget and are identified as such. There are three planning the work scope. First, press shutdowns. You should identify these tasks and schedule them to take place during the pre-shutdown stage. Second, shutdowns. These tasks should include any preparatory work that could slow progress during the shutdown stage. And the last but not least, post-shutdowns. The post-shutdown stage should include maintenance activities that technicians can complete after production startup activities begin. Planning the shutdown jobs and tasks. First one, you must identify the tasks necessary to complete each job and analyze the estimated labor time, material, and any special needs necessary for completing the job. After that, you should decide on which jobs to carry out simultaneously or individually. Also, be sure to account for scenarios such as material that have long delivery periods. Work breakdown structure. There are several planning managers must structure the work into small elements that are: first, manageable in that specific authority and responsibility can be assigned. Second, independent or with minimum interfacing with and dependence on other ongoing elements. Third, integratable so that the total package can be seen. The last one, measurable in terms of progress. The work breakdown structure is the single most important element in planning because it provides a common framework from which, first, the total program can be described as a summation of subdivided elements. Second, planning can be performed for the shutdowns. Third, the WBS provides a detailed structure to estimate and capture costs for equipment, labor, and material on each task. It lays the groundwork for developing an effective schedule and good budget plans. 4. Objectives can be linked to company results in a logical manner. 5. Schedule and status reporting procedure can be established. 6. Network construction and control planning can be initiated. The responsibility assignment for each element can be established. 7. Third, the statement of work defines scope at the conceptual level. A comprehensive look at the shutdown scope can be accomplished only with a WBS. 8. The tasks on the WBS become the basis for monitoring progress because each is a measurable unit of work. Time, cost, and performance can be tracked. 9. The level of detail in a WBS makes it easy to hold people accountable for completing their tasks. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and selamat sejahtera. My name is Muhammad Syahmi bin Muhammad Yusri. My matrix card number is VA19007. So, as for my part, firstly I will explain about the generating of the verb rate structure. The best way to generate the WBS is as part of the joint planning session by having several planning steps. As for planning step 1, first of all, we need to focus on top-down approach. The top-down approach means begins at the goal level and successively partition work down to lower level of definition. Secondly, we need to focus on team approach. which divide the planning team into as many sub-teams as there are activities at level 1 of the work break structure. Then follow this step. Firstly, the planning team agrees on the approach to building the first level of the WBS. Secondly, the planning team creates the level 1 activities. Thirdly, a subject matter expert leads the team in further decomposition of the WBS for his or her area of expertise. And finally, the team suggests decomposition ideas for the expert until each activity within the level 1 activities meets the WBS completion criteria. Next, geographic. If shutdown work is geographically dispersed, it may make sense from a coordination and communication perspective to partition the work first by geographic location and then by some other approach at each location. Finally, departmental. Departmental, from what I understand, could actually benefit from partitioning the shutdown first by department and then within the department by whatever approach makes sense. We can actually benefit from this structure in that a major portion of the project work is under the organizational control of a single manager. We should also increase the need for communication and coordination across organizational boundaries for this approach of departmental. Next, as for the planning step 2, we should identify task relationship, which is the sequence in which detailed tasks such as work package are performed is determined by the relationship between the tasks. Secondly, is the calculating of the critical path, which is to maintain, control, and keep the project on schedule. Now it is the time to start thinking about the critical path concept, in which, as activities are completed ahead of schedule or behind schedule, the critical path will change. Next, we should move forward to planning step 3, in which we should focus on manpower strategy planning in choosing the right people for the shutdown team become job number 1. In order to do so, we need specialists who can either lead skill work groups or execute jobs on their own. We should also focus on determination of the skills needed, such as having identified the work package through the work breakdown structure. The shutdown manager has a good idea of the skill required of the shutdown workers. Next is planning step 4, in which we need to estimate work package to determine the cost and duration of the shutdown. It is necessary to build a cost and schedule estimate for each work package, which is called bottom-up estimating. As for planning step 5, we need to calculate an initial schedule, which is the key to establishing realistic schedules and meeting them. The initial schedule is calculated by using the network diagram and the duration of each work package to determine the start and finish dates for each task and for the entire project. Okay, let's move forward to planning step 6, which is develop a resource plan to allocate the resource required to undertake each of the activities and tasks within the shutdown plan. Edited resource assessment is required to identify the type of resource such as labor, equipment, and materials, total quantities of each resource type, roles, responsibility, and skills of all human resource items, purpose and specification of all equipment resources, and items and quantities of materials resources. Next, process of resource leveling, which focus only on the people and equipment. The leveling follows a 4-step process. Firstly, forecast the resource requirements throughout the shutdown for the initial schedule. Secondly, identify the resource peaks by using resource spreadsheet and the resource histogram where there are unrealistic or uneconomical resource amounts. Thirdly, at each peak, delay non-critical tasks within their flow. Remember that flow is schedule flexibility. Tasks with flow can be delayed without changing the product deadline. Fourthly, to eliminate the remaining peaks, we evaluate the work package estimates. As for planning step 7, develop procurement plan to identify the elements of the project which will be acquired from external suppliers. As for planning step 8, develop quality plan to ensure that the quality expectations that are clearly defined and can be reasonably achieved. A quality plan is documented. The quality plan defines what quality means in terms of this project. Secondly, list clear and unambiguous quality targets for each deliverable. Each quality target provides a set of criteria and standards that must be achieved to meet the expectation of the customer. Thirdly, outline a plan of activities that will assure the customer that the quality targets will be met. And finally, identify the techniques used to control the actual level of quality of each deliverable as it is built. Going to planning step 9, we should develop communication plan to identify the type of information to be distributed, the methods of distributing information to stakeholders, the frequency of distribution and responsibility of each person in the shutdown team for distributing information regularly to stakeholders. Lastly, planning step 10, which requires us to develop risk plan to mitigate all critical project risks prior to entering the execution phase of the project. Once the planning is completed, there is a need for a detailed planning and accurate cost estimate. The detailed cost estimate becomes the standard for keeping costs in line. The full commitment and support of the senior management is vital for the turnaround success. They must be committed to the following, which is frozen work list. Work for turnaround should be the work that cannot be undertaken at another time. Thirdly, releasing staff and resources as needed. Fourthly, minimizing additional work. Fifthly, creating a work environment where the turnaround planning and execution are shared responsibilities. And finally, encouraging a team spirit and attitude to understand and help each other. Turnaround detailed planning is to ensure that all necessary work during the turnaround is incorporated and integrated into the plan, which include all capital work and the operational shutdown and the startup sequence. Okay, next, I will explain about the job and task planning in detail, in which all work list proposals must pass through the core team for review and impact assessment. The core team's activities should focus on firming of all turnaround work inputs, which include risk-based inspection and reliability items, capital works, compliance items, HACCP study outputs, operational requirements, process engineering requirements, environmental safety and health needs, and lastly, maintenance requirements, which is maintainability, reliability, and constructability reviews. Secondly, resolution of conflicting needs, and lastly, long lead time material procurement. The work list should be finalized 12 to 18 months before the shutdown date. It is a key role of the core team to ensure that this happens. The core team leader establishes cut-off dates for turnover of capital items that must be adhered to. Okay, next is the additional work, which could be an oversight or that which arises during execution. During this stage, the core team activities should focus on final work list, final plan for equipment cleaning and personnel entry, contracting plan in place and all major contracts, critical path schedule, detailed execution plans, detailed safety plan, additional work approval process, turnover of all capital work, completion of materials procurement plan and long lead time materials order, what if scenarios, lifting plans, mobile equipment requirements, final estimate, and lastly, definition of format and frequency of performance and progress report. After this, I'm going to talk about the checklist for turnaround, which can be categorized in 4 parts, which is turnaround work schedule, management of turnaround, work scope of turnaround, and lastly, inspection of facilities and maintenance turnaround. As for turnaround work schedule, the checklist could be such as, has a cutoff date been decided for the finalization of the turnaround work scope? Has the cutoff date been followed? Secondly, as for the compilation, has a person been made responsible for compilation of the work list? And lastly, has the planning cycle for the work scope input and finalization been start in time? Next is management of turnaround, such as the checklist for organization and responsibilities, brainstorming session, and work scope preparation, such as Has the turnaround organization been identified and set up early with responsibility defined clearly? And have the brainstorming session been conducted to get all the jobs and their economic justification? And lastly, have all the departments been involved in the work scope preparation? And as for the inspection of facilities and maintenance turnaround, there could be checklists about detailed inspection report of the previous turnaround, issue of a list, common facilities covered in the work list, input of the operation departments being cooperated, and lastly, the inputs from the maintenance department being cooperated. Lastly is the work scope of turnaround checklist, which could be such as the checklist of modification proposed by technology, jobs that could not be done, type job and listing jobs, critically reviewed work scope, decided realistic execution time, and finally, the procedures of work scope addition. For instance, has the realistic execution time been decided for the agreed work scope? Has a well-managed content and complete work scope for the turnaround been prepared before the cutoff date? Have all the jobs in the work list been checked for meeting turnaround criteria? As I mentioned earlier, there is a work list in the checklist, which consists of material codes for stock items required, purchase order number and location for direct charge items, drawing reference, spec list, hydro testing pressure, name of contractors for various jobs, gasket schedule, size and rating of line, and finally detailed procedure of job. Next, I'm going to explain about the information requirement for planning. Effective maintenance turnaround planning requires reliable information. Gathering and using reliable information to plan your next maintenance turnaround will improve your planning and scheduling efficiency. You can get the information from SAP or any other computerized maintenance management system software. These tools can maintain the historical information from previous maintenance turnaround. The information you need falls under the following categories, such as master equipment list, work scope and prioritization, tools and equipment, materials, time, labor, safety, quality, and lastly, cost. Next, I'm going to explain about the common planning failures. Firstly, the failure to plan in sufficient detail, such as sometimes shutdown managers make an attempt to plan but don't do it in enough detail. Secondly, failing to plan and schedule project work in enough detail can result in three significant undesirable effects. Thirdly, failure to involve task performance in planning. The principle is simple. The people who will be working on your shutdown should be deeply involved in planning the operation of it. There are at least two good reasons for this. First, the planning output will undoubtedly be more accurate as the task performers are probably more knowledgeable than you. After all, it's what they do. Second, involving them during the planning stage is likely to make them significantly more willing to participate and more committed to succeeding. People often feel compelled to live up to what they've promised. Lastly, failure to reflect risk and uncertainty in plans, in which risk and uncertainty have the apparent effect of extending schedules or making things cost more. Yet, many who plan projects do not properly assess, accommodate, or plan for the inherent risks in the shutdown. Lastly, for my session, I will talk about the other common problem areas in planning, such as late start to planning process, lack of input to job lists, open job lists, which continually moving target, lack of understanding of responsibilities, poor purchasing systems, lack of team alignment, no familiarization of contractors to the turnaround plan, poor management commitment, poor worker productivity, and finally, poor safety environmental management. This develop and unless properly managed can significantly influence the turnaround performance. That's all from me. Thank you.
Salam sejahtera and good day everyone. I am Rafael Makmakas and the number of metric cards VA19019. So today I will be presenting about executing. So usually executing a best of shutdown that are so important. So basically it is characterized by the performance of a large volume task, meaning by it is a large number of people and many skills and disciplines that focus on a limited space or the shutdown. So execution can be broken down to subphases. As you can see inside this slide, we have fresh shutdown work, shutting the plan down, opening the plan up, inspecting the plan, installation of new items, safety review during execution, boxing the plan up, daily meeting or controlling, monitoring and controlling, joint integrity management, plan testing, starting the plan up, plan clean up and final inspection, and also risk management. So what is the meaning by shutting the plan down? So usually shutting the plan down is removing inventory, decontaminating, cooling, and isolating. And the meaning of opening the plan down, the part number 3 means physical disconnection of item and removal of covers. And inspecting the plants means we inspecting by using visual and instrumental examination and report. And go to boxing the plan up means we use to do final inspection, replacement of covers, and reconnection. So the plant testing means by pressure test, symptom test, trip, and alarm test. Last but not least is the starting the plant up, means reconnecting the service and reintroducing the inventory. So the next page is kick-off meeting, means what we usually focus is the critical for team members. So the critical for team members are provide a board introduction for shutdown. So usually kick-off meeting using the method of plan and execute the shutdown. And last but not least, pre-shutdown is we need to check the lighting requirements, free and open access to exit, and review emergency plans. So that is the three methods that we must aware when we do kick-off meeting. Next page is safety. So when it comes to safety, in a turnaround or shutdown work, it is more like a construction job. So this job need to be take extra precaution. So usually there are a lot of people in the same area at the same time during shutdown. So the most common question of safety during the shutdown should be asked is, have all personnel, including contractors, been briefed on personal protective equipment requirement? Are safety procedures such as lockout, vessel entry, and hot work understood by all? Will a crane or other overhead device be used in this area? And then will 2 or more groups be working in close proximity? Then we have what type of lockout will be used? Will adequate lighting be available? Are safety clearance needed for the job? So the next slide, we have job status update. So usually job status update is a key to a successful shutdown is having up to that information. So many shutdown problems are caused by a lack of job information during execution. So all employment status must be communicated as soon as possible to report on job progress. A regular procedure should be established. So each morning, the shutdown coordinator should communicate with the shift coordinators. If a 3-shift operation is being employed, the second or night shift coordinator should have already briefed the third or graveyard shift coordinator. So information provided by the coordinator should be include delays and problems that occurred during the previous evening, which problem were resolved and which were not, staffing change that were made during the evening, and then a rough estimate of the elapsed time remaining on each job, and the presentation of the completion of all the jobs performed during the evening. And next is during the day shift, all problems which may result in a delay in completion time or an increase in shutdown cost should be communicated. And at the end of every day shift, the shutdown planner should meet with all the shutdown support personnel and update the shutdown status. And we have properly closed all work orders from the shutdown as they are completed. And last but not least, we have to ask what heavy equipment coordination is required today. And the next slide is daily schedule. So daily schedule is individual daily schedule must be separated from the work plan before each day of the closure, because this task should be completed by or under the supervision of the shutdown coordinator. This adjustment can be communicated to the maintenance first shift supervisor. So the reporting status is shutdown planner should prepare report the status of the shutdown at any time, and then progress with respect to eventual startup time any situation that may extend the shutdown should be reported immediately. And then we have shutdown manager must report progress quicker than originally estimated. And last but not least, also we have program evaluation, review technique chart provide the best overall look at shutdown. So back to tracking shutdown costs. So tracking shutdown costs is the data on shutdown costs should be made public and available for all to see. So the cost per week and cumulative expenditure are the most frequent way to report the static, such as the cumulative S-curve and weekly charting methods are the best for the tracking budget against actual expenses. So this graph depicts the programs made toward the shutdown's budget target. So the costs are shown as both estimated and real. So first we must update the software, identify overall shutdown status, and then the system rescheduling activity, and going to reporting system for daily shutdown and monitoring. And coordination among departments, maintenance, production are also important. The next is monitoring and reporting the format for maintenance, and prepare for unplanned or unforeseen jobs. And last is record of shutdown execution and completion. Pre-shutdown. So pre-shutdown is a responsibility chart of execution team members. And number 2, we have overview of job list detailing pre-turnaround work, and then turnaround schedule including pre-fabrication work schedule, unit shutdown, and startup plan. And we have details of permit philosophy for the turnaround facilities. Last but not least, we have the introduction to monitoring formats and fixing responsibilities for the progress feedback. So when it comes to turnaround execution, for the first one, we have predetermined day operating section start, taking steps to shut down the unit in line with written down procedure. And then we must talk to the supervisor and his or her team. Workmen must keep on duty at each process unit. And we ensure popping out or steaming or also cooling. All hydrocarbons and chemical must be removed from all the equipment and pipeline in the process unit before the execution or shutdown will be start. And then last but not least, equipment is to be handed over to the execution teams in as clean a condition as possible to enable them to carry out the turnaround work smoothly. And all work has to be proceed as per plan. So tagging and marking. The purpose of tagging and marking are to ensure the group will identify and tag all leftover jobs, if any. And then we have all tag jobs should be identified with number tags. While issuing clearance for such jobs, the same tag number should appear on the clearance for easy identification. Last but not least, for tagging and marking, the inspection and maintenance area engineer will jointly tag the area location where installation needs to be removed from inspection and to carry out recommended repairs replacement job. For the temporary building and enclosures, temporary buildings and enclosures are often the direct responsibility and cost of vendors and contractors. It is advisable to review with the contractors the following areas of coverage. Pre-fabricated work is a copy of the pre-fabrication documentation that is isometric or other drawings, welding procedure or pressure testing procedure. So the next we have, if anything on the pre-fabrication bill of material is on long delivery, so we must try to expedite it and ensure it reaches the site before the shutdown. So when it comes to crowd control, so to avoid crowd control on shutdown area is use programmable magnetic cards and portable readers. It is great for speed up the entry and exit process and help to ensure the accurate crowd control. And next step, we have a magnetic card that can be programmed with an employee's name and company as well, others pertinent information. And last but not least, for crowd control is when the card is swiped through the reader, the notes, the exact data and time with the card information will be much detailed. Contractors insurance certificate. So for on-site contractors or other outside service, most organizations require minimal liability protection as well as proof of workers' compensation coverage. So the majority of contracting organizations only purchase this insurance for the brief period required. The presence of a contractor in the facility earlier this year does not mean that any coverage received for that job is still valid. So shutdown extends beyond an earlier expected completion date. Insurance coverage that was obtained for the original time period must be extended by the contractor or it will become invalid. And For contractor insurance certificate, a file should be maintained for such certificate to minimize third-party litigation in event of injuries, death, or major damage. Okay, safety training. For safety training, step number one is to provide a safe working environment. It's obvious. And number two, we have the governed facility relationship with outside contractors. That's most important. And last is ensure the contractor employee and our employees are trained to protect themselves from all potential and existing hazards. For the reason why employing barricades are important is to limit the entrance or progress from any particular area of the plant or facility for safety reason. So number two is to define travel corridor for contractor to and from their parking lot and break areas into their work area with the site. Number three, to protect all personnel from hazardous area or to minimize access to such area and to limit right to know training for all temporary personnel. So for emergency showers and eye bath, these units are available on a rental basis with pressurized and temperature regulated water supplies, and the rental company can also be contracted to provide regular documented inspection and testing. So don't forget to request the copies of such inspection for our own records for safety purpose. And then for special machine, so this is the special machine that can save time and money when shutdown activities are done. So number one is we have thermal imaging, we have bolt tensioning and torque, sound wave signature measurement, remote cameras, video and introscopy, laser alignment and measurement, and also metal spraying. So when it comes to vendor's representative, in certain cases, a vendor's representative is required on the site for expert advice. So in order to ensure that they will be on site when required and can provide a good service, ask the vendor to visit the site beforehand, if required to check the equipment before the turnaround start. So if the vendor is from overseas, arrange for his visa at an early date, and the preparation should be such that there should be no problem during execution. So that's all from me. So the next topic will be presented by my friends. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and good day. My name is Ahmad Habizan bin Jetan and my ID is VA19028. Today I will be explaining controlling process in chapter 2 for shutdown phases. Okay, first of all, controlling process, there are 6 things you must competent and know well. First of all is tracking progress. Basically, it can be reviewed where have you been for your shutdown processes. It can be compared with the original schedule as planned by the planner. So, it will be big roles for shutdown manager to make confirmation with all coordinators and planner. For example, we can review any job by daily, weekly, monthly, or by stages. Second one is detecting variance from plan by variance report. What is variance report? Variance report is we can controlling quality as per requested by client. The third one is forecast and evaluation potential problem area. It is a huge thing that management must creating evaluation form for seeking potential problem area to get zero accident as per campaign. Next, it is a taking corrective action. It is important to get the best action to ensure all process in progress and on time. Next, we must know what problem ahead can affect you majorly. It can be proven by analysis from time to time. For example, lifetime equipment that has been used in shutdown process. Last but not least, providing consultant surveillance of shutdown condition. We can appoint plant safety coordinator for check-up daily job scope. For example, patrolling potential problem area instead. The next one is what actually you're controlling. Of course, schedule, cost, functionality, and quality. For example, will the shutdown complete on time? And the cost must be reduced, but at the same time, 100% quality indeed. Functionality will be the shutdown delivered to client as expected, and quality the most important to get full trust from client for next project. To get successful controlling for all that explained before, It has 4 key process elements that are important. First of all is a baseline of measurement. The next one is processes and method for gathering data, and emphasis on timeline. Last but not least, process, tools and method for analyze past, present and future performance. We all know that baseline are important in process element. There are a few types of baseline. First of baseline is the scope baseline. Majorly it's the sum of the deliverable of the shutdown. It started from original scope baseline and all changes must be approved to add or subtract the original baseline. For example, any disruption on schedule happen due to heavy rain, and of course, workers' safety also our top priority. The next one is the time baseline. Basically refers scheduling of all work that will done as planned, and every data that given should be evaluated to maintaining control process shutdown. Majorly, it can be classified as evaluation process for maintaining control process shutdown. Last but not least, the cost baseline. Budget and cost for all shutdown process estimated until all job done, and the cost estimates are determined by work breakdown structure. And it's referring to budget from estimated time until the work done. Measuring progress. Measuring progress can be defined as tracking throughout the shutdown. Next, warn of pending problem in time to take action. Lastly, it's easily understood by those who have a need to know. For a good result, we also need to analyze the schedule that given, and it has a 3 characteristics: is the original baseline plan, the amount of progress made, and the forecasted time to complete. Next one is control process. Every control process is designed to spot problem early. It's a big role for shutdown manager to measure and evaluate all the costing and plan. There are 5 steps in control process. The first one is define what will be measured and how often. This should incorporate business requirement, cost, constraint, technical specification, and deadline, along with preliminary schedule for monitoring and includes who responsible for it. The next one is monitor progress and evaluate deviation from the plan. 2 kind information collected. First one is actual shutdown data, which include time, budget, and resources used and completion status of current tasks. Second is unanticipated changes, including changes to budget, schedule, and scope. Report progress. Keep the report compact and timely, and do not delay a report until after a problem is fixed to make the report much better. The next one is analyzing all reports. Look for trends in the data and avoid to fix every deviation. Last but not least, take action where necessary, include updating the shutdown plan and inform any stockholder who are affected by the changes. If the changes are too big, they will require steering committee approval in advance. Change management. For change management, generally it is for any changes for scopes, deliverable time, dates, timescales, or any resources. There are few examples how the change management works. The first of all, before the shutdown starts, design an issue process that will meet your shutdown needs. Next, when the issue arises, write down what is it. The third one, assign the issue to somebody to resolve the problem. If in a small shutdown, the shutdown manager will be decided to give the issue for resolution. For larger shutdown, the team leader will be decided for resolving any issue. Next, the person asked to resolve the issue does whatever it takes to get it resolved. Next, escalation path must be opened before the shutdown starts. Agree with the sponsors and the stakeholder and the steering committee members how you'll get urgent issue to them. Next step is write down how the issue was resolved. Last but not least, in status meeting, monitor open issue and give particular attention to issues that are past their target resolution date. That's all from me. Thank you very much.